off to the races. Fjellberg picks a side and finds the back of the net.
A big score for the Indy 11. The dream of a new soccer stadium finally a reality. How it could transform downtown Indianapolis. Also ahead, a stunner in West Lafayette.
Purdue is now elevated into the first ranks of public universities. It's recognized in a way significantly different than it was in 2013 when Mitch arrived.
So there can be some real value.
Mitch Daniels stepping down as president of Purdue University, remembering his numerous accomplishments and a look ahead to what's next. And riding the rails in Northwest Indiana taking a new direction. Details on how the South Shore Double Track project is moving full steam ahead. Inside Indiana Business starts now.
We've tried to map out other missions for this university, becoming an economic engine to attract new sponsored research, and frankly, to make of our area a more attractive environment.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick. Two big stories lead our show this week. Mitch Daniels dropping a bombshell when he announced that he's stepping down as president of Purdue University. He'll join me in a moment for an extended interview, and I'll ask him about the timing of his departure and what's next. But first, an exclusive from our partners at the IBJ on another major sports venue for downtown Indianapolis. The Indy 11 selecting a spot for a new 20,000-seat soccer stadium right next to Victory Field, across the street from the Indiana Convention Center, very close to Lucas Oil Stadium as well. And it is a project that goes well beyond the soccer pitch. Our partners at the IBJ, reporter Mickey Shuey breaking that story this week, and editor Leslie Weidenbender joins us from the IBJ newsroom now. Leslie, a lot of people have been interested in this story, and again, it's a story that goes well beyond the sports, well beyond just the stadium aspect.
Yeah, we've been watching this since 2019 when the legislature gave the Indy 11 an opportunity to finance a stadium. They have chosen the the Diamond Chain manufacturing site. There's actually still a plant operating there, but they will move out soon. Ursal Osmer and the Keystone Group bought that site, and it will eventually be home to apartments, a hotel, retail, the stadium, and a number of other projects, office space too.
Wow, big project. How about the price tag? Has the price tag changed?
Absolutely. When this was first announced several years ago, they were looking at $550 million. There is not a final price tag on the project now, but the developer has said it could reach over $1 billion just because of inflation, but also because the commercial parts of the project are expected to be bigger than originally anticipated.
Wow, big story. A new home for the Indy 11 in downtown Indianapolis. IBJ editor Leslie Weidenbender, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now on to our other big story this week. Mitch Daniels announcing that he is stepping down as president of Purdue University. After nearly 10 years on the job, he has been a change agent at Purdue and in higher education more broadly. He's also had a big hand in naming his successor, Dr. Mong Chang. And I'm pleased to be joined now on the show by Mitch Daniels from the Purdue campus. Mitch, again, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Gerry.
Hey, you certainly surprised a few people, have stirred up a little news with this announcement. I understand you made the decision to do this maybe in April, just making the announcement a week ago or so now. Any significance to the timing? Why now?
No special significance. I've been thinking about it for a good long time. I think in such decisions, you got to put the enterprise first. And I believe we've done that through the process and certainly the selection that has been made up here. But you have to do this a little bit on instinct. Gerry, I've often said to people, I think a good rule in such situations is better a year too soon than a day too late. And I've still got a few ideas and I think some energy, but I would never want to go stale in the job. And I was most conscious of the need to turn the place over in good shape and put it in strong hands.
Yeah, well, we want to talk about what might be next in a moment, but Going in reverse here, a decade ago or so, when you went into this job, you were a novice in higher education. As you think back on those early days at Purdue, you're a guy who's a change agent really in any job you've held over the course of a number of years. What was that like? What was the learning curve like in higher education for Mitch Daniels?
Steep. I think I'm still climbing it, really. But I must say that the people at Purdue were tremendously welcoming, eager to teach a novice. I'll say eager to see somebody try some new things. We're, after all, we're supposed to be a haven. We are a haven of innovation in so many ways. Why not in how we approach our own business? You know, I was named at about the same time in 2012 as we have named Mung in this year. I had 6 months to climb that curve you ask about. Made 13 trips to campus, if I counted correctly, made field trips to other places, read every book in sight. Got here, I always say, in 3rd grade as opposed to kindergarten with regard to higher ed. And my successor needs no such preparation, but I do think we've made a good plan by giving him 6 months to get ready.
We're going to talk about your successor and some of your many accomplishments in the second part of our interview, but a lot of people want to know, you say you have energy and some ideas left. What's next for Mitch Daniels? A lot of speculation on a return to politics. Are you going to get back into the political game, in particular with a run for governor?
Apparently, a lot of people are thinking about these things and talking about them, but I'm not one of those people. And I literally haven't given it a thought and won't, whatever might be next, and I hope there will be a next. I won't be giving that a thought for quite a long time. I got a lot on the plate right here at Purdue. There will still be things on the plate on December 31. I'm going to advance them as far as I can, and also, as I say, try to make sure my friend Mung gets off to a rocket start.
But politics could be in that mix of things that are next for Mitch Daniels?
I wouldn't rule it out, Gary, but I assure you it's not the first, second, or third thing on my mind. And I've enjoyed, of course, the chance to serve in different capacities in the past. I was never obsessed with public office, and I'm not now.
All right, coming up next, in the second part of our interview with Mitch Daniels, we'll get his take on his successor, Mung Chiang, his legacy, and what might be next for Purdue. Stay with us.
It is the highest and most humbling honor to be selected by the Board of Trustees as the next president of Purdue University.
That is the next leader at Purdue University, Dr. Mung Chiang, who heads the College of Engineering at Purdue. And as we take over, or as we continue our conversation with Mitch Daniels from the Purdue campus in West Lafayette, Mitch, I know you're a strong supporter of your successor. What should people know about him?
He's brilliant. He won the Maxwell Prize a few years ago as the best American scientist under the age of 40.
Wow.
He is a refugee from communism. He was born in mainland China, and the family escaped. And he knows better than many Americans the value of freedom and the value of our free institutions. He is, I think, ideally suited for the Purdue of today, the Purdue we have tried to build for 10 years, a national STEM a powerhouse, now attracting brilliant students from all over the country in record numbers. And I just think he is perfectly positioned to lead our university and to lead it for a long time.
And he will begin leading January 1 of next year. You mentioned, you talk about the Purdue of today, and certainly it has changed dramatically during your tenure. A lot of things we can point to in terms of accomplishments. Got a lot of attention for freezing tuition for the length of your tenure, record numbers in fundraising and innovation and commercialization as well. Not to mention the physical makeup of the plant, of the campus has changed dramatically. Mitch, as you reflect back, there's a real really an unfair question in a lot of ways, but is there one thing, or are there one or two things from a legacy standpoint you can point to really that you really say, hey, I'm really proud of that thing?
It's like asking me to choose among my four daughters, Gary, but
right.
I suppose one difference that sums up or aggregates many of the other changes is that we've doubled applications here in 10 years. And it was once thought that and we've grown the student body by a third or more. It was once thought that if you did that, you would have to trade off quality for quantity, and exactly the opposite has happened. We are attracting students both from in the state. We have more Hoosiers on campus than we've ever had due to our growth, but also brilliant students from elsewhere. And their academic profile, the overall academic profile, has risen year after year. A great assignment for us all is to capture more and more of this talent and keep them here in Indiana in a brain gain fashion. But I think those phenomena have only happened because so many people have done so much good work to make this a more exciting, attractive, and higher visibility Purdue.
Yeah, you talk about the brain gain. Interesting to me are the partnerships that you have and continue to establish with high-profile companies, whether it's GE Aviation, Rolls-Royce, Solemtech, Saab. You can go on down the list. A lot of really strong partnerships in the business sector. Is that part of the future, a bigger part of the future, that connection to the business community and the academic world?
Yes, exactly. One reason that you and I discussed, I remember years ago, that I found this job attractive was that a high-tech center of excellence like Purdue in today's economy is an economic magnet, can be an economic engine if it applies itself to that. So we've done that very consciously. Number one, to provide a service to Indiana and to our neighboring communities. Tippecanoe County had the fastest growing per capita income in the country a couple years ago. And as President Reagan used to say, you ain't seen nothing yet. We've got, I think, some tremendous new investments, business investments in Prospect. By the way, part of his, I think, growth and preparation for this job is we've had Mung involved very directly with me in these recruitments. So, from Purdue's standpoint, what this means is the environment around our campus is becoming more and more vibrant, more and more, I hope, appealing to the faculty and the students that we want in our future.
Well, you still got a few more months on the job. I'm sure we'll be talking to you between now and then and finding out what might be next as well. Mitch Daniels, really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Well, if Mitch Daniels decides to run for public office, Robin Winston thinks he might want to focus on the national level. Robin is my next guest on the Business and Beyond podcast. We talk about a lot of issues. He co-founded the WINSTON TERRE Group in Indianapolis back in the early 2000s. It's now the largest, or one of the largest, minority-owned government affairs, community relations, and public outreach firms in the country. Before that, Robin made history in 1999, becoming the first African-American to chair a major political party in Indiana. He says Mitch Daniels could play a key role in politics at the national level.
He could be the kind of guy that maybe get involved nationally to try to slow some of these things down. He focused not so much on the social issues. He focused on financial issues and government delivery service issues, which I think folks at the national level should devote their energy to, not some of the rancor we have now.
We covered a lot of ground with Indiana political analyst, entrepreneur, and philanthropist Robin Winston. To check it out, just go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. After decades of talk, a generational project in Northwest Indiana is now moving forward. We'll take you to Michigan City for the start of the South Shore double tracking project and the economic impact it could have in the region. A historic week in Northwest Indiana, the official groundbreaking of the long-awaited South Shore double track project. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond joins us now with more on this transformational project.
Well, the start of a transformation indeed. Governor Eric Holcomb says the $649 million South Shore double track project will be a ginormous magnet for growth in Northwest Indiana. Governor Eric Holcomb hard at work as he hammers down a ceremonial golden spike into a section of railroad track in Michigan City this week, marking the beginning of what many are touting as a new era of economic prosperity for Northwest Indiana.
We are absolutely positioned for growth, and this project, in my opinion, will help unlock the incredible value proposition that is Northwest Indiana.
The South Shore double track will make traveling to and from Chicago, the 8th largest economy in the world, 33 minutes faster, making the region an attractive place for new business.
It is really a game-changing event for this town and the other communities up and down the rail lines. Making it easier for people to come to and from Chicago, get the higher paying jobs, come back to Northwest Indiana, spend the money in our little neck of the world, our little slice of heaven.
In fact, the area is already seeing an uptick in development.
They see the potential for development in the whole rail corridor and what we have here in Indiana. Governor Holcomb has got a balance sheet of a $5 billion surplus. We're the envy of the country. I mean, not only do we have $1.5 billion going into the rail projects, but there's another almost $3 billion going into private sector development over the next 20 years. It's just a massive infusion of capital into the state, an investment in infrastructure and in quality of place. This is going to be a different place here in the next 5 to 10 years. Take a picture of it today, because it won't look like this in the future.
Governor Holcomb's office says the extension of the South Shore Line and adjacent projects in the region will generate $2.7 billion in private investment to Northwest Indiana, creating more than 6,000 jobs by 2048. While staying in Northwest Indiana, Harvest Time Family Farm is preparing for a prehistoric invasion, Jurassic Park style, literally. Owners Melissa and Josh Sickinger are creating an experience unlike anything you'll find anywhere, well, in Indiana. From a T-Rex to the Brontosaurus, Dino Time will be a permanent fixture on the farm, featuring over 20 animatronic, life-size dinosaurs that breathe, blink, and even let out the occasional roar. There's even authentic prehistoric vegetation, and it's all outdoors. The dinos were built in China and are making their way to Indiana by way of Chicago in the next few weeks.
It's going to include over 20 life-size animatronic dinosaurs. You're going to be able to see breathing, their eye movement,
they make their sounds,
authentic sounds. I think it's definitely a unique experience for those in Northwest Indiana and really anybody all over the state.
Lowell's very own Jurassic Park at Harvest Time Family Farm is set to open in early August. And finally, in Vigo County, a major victory for the city of Terre Haute. Officials broke ground on the $240 million casino and hotel project being developed by Kentucky-based Churchill Downs. The Queen of Terre Haute Resort will feature a 400,000 square foot casino and a 125-room hotel. The project is expected to generate nearly $200 million in annual economic impact. And Terre Haute Mayor Duke Bennett couldn't be more excited.
It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing in a way for all of us. It's such a huge economic shot in the arm. Here you've got a company that's going to come in and invest $260 million and not ask for any incentives. You know, usually that's what we're kind of used to dealing with when big business wants to come. It's just going to have so many benefits down the road once it opens and once the revenue starts coming in and those kind of things. That's where the exciting part will really kick in, but just the fact that it's real and it's happening.
Officials say they hope the casino will open late next year. Well, for a look at more Hoosier headlines and stories across the state, visit our website at InsideIndianaBusiness.com.
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Coming up next, the Indiana connection to some real technology. Well, the Evonik manufacturing facility in Lafayette is one of the company's largest in the world, and the Germany-based manufacturer recently announced plans to make it even bigger. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has more. Kylie.
Thank you, Gary. Prompted in part by Evonik's work in the COVID vaccines, the U.S. government is footing most of the bill for a $220 million expansion at the Tippecanoe site. The specialty chemical company selected its Indiana site to build its first lipid production facility in the U.S. In its home country of Germany, Evonik is making lipids for the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. But lipids have promise far beyond the pandemic, so the company is banking on Indiana. Yvonne Hurt is Global Project Manager Senior Manager for Evonik's healthcare business at Evonik's Tippecanoe Laboratories, and she joins me now to tell us more about the project. Welcome to the show, Yvonne. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Kylie. Thank you. I'm glad to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start from the beginning. This project is to build a new production facility for lipids. Can you explain what are lipids?
Great question. So when I think about lipids, right, you can think of them as tiny bubbles of fat, right? And so the purpose of that is so it prevents degradation in the body, right? It encapsulates the mRNA, and then the mRNA carries the genetic information into the cells. The lipids and mRNA together then form those lipid nanoparticles, which are the golden standard of mRNA delivery.
Okay, so almost like vehicles for the mRNA, which I think we all became more familiar with mRNA technology during COVID there in 2 of the COVID vaccines, but it shows promise beyond COVID. So can you talk a little bit about how these lipids could be used beyond COVID?
Absolutely. And so as the future of medicine, mRNA could be used to treat, like you said, more than just COVID. So potential areas could be the flu, Zika, HIV, or even cancer. The production of lipids requires a significant know-how and expertise, as you've probably researched. It's currently actually the most advanced way to deliver drugs.
And this is your first lipid production site in the U.S. Explain how its capacity will compare to your lipid production site in Germany.
So Evonik is an expert in drug delivery solutions. We've invested in that technology for years now and have been providing drug product services for many years. Regarding our German sites, Hanau and Dassenheim sites in Germany, there we've been producing lipids since the beginning of 2021, where we supplied those lipids to BioNTech for its Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. So to your question, we can produce the same portfolio of lipids as our German sites at our new site in Tippecanoe that will be coming online. As far as the capacity, we'll be able to produce more lipids in Tippecanoe than our German sites through our world-scale plant to help meet global demand.
All right, really impressive work that will be taking place there in Lafayette. We mentioned this is a $220 million expansion. The government is footing most of the bill, $150 million. Explain how this all points back to pandemic preparedness.
Perfect. And so this new facility really ensures a rapid and extensive supply of lipids in case of a future pandemic. What the U.S. is doing then, the U.S. government gets priority access for a 10-year period and most favored customer pricing on those lipids. So Kylie, in other words, we help ensure that the U.S. is prepared for another pandemic.
Okay, so you employ about 650 at your Tippecanoe site now. I understand this project is expected to create about 80 jobs. Just talk a little bit about the impact on the local economy there in Lafayette as a result of this expansion.
Right, and you mentioned those 80 jobs, right? They're high-paying jobs in the areas of like operations, engineering, supply chain, quality assurance. This new construction jobs during the building phase, it's really going to be helpful and bring in more to the economy. And quite truthfully, as you know, Indiana is truly a great place to do business and grow our business here. So we've appreciated all the support from the Indiana Economic Development Corporation and Greater Lafayette. So with this new facility in Indiana, we're excited to help fuel that growth of mRNA therapies well beyond COVID-19 vaccines, which of course in turn supports the local economic growth.
All right, Yvonne, congrats on the expansion and good luck. Keep us posted, and thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kylie.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, in our next half hour, a deep dive into Title IX, its impact 50 years later, not only on the court, but the doors it has opened for women in education and the workplace.
Girls and young women now, the doors are open, and Title IX has made a tremendous difference.
Marking a milestone. 50 years since Title IX changed the game for women in the United States. And the Indiana connection.
The #1 contribution to Title IX is giving women the intellectual capacity to provide for themselves and their families.
The late Indiana Senator Birch Bayh. His vision, passion, and persistence on creating an equal playing field for women. Join us for a special look back at the impact of Title IX. Next, on the second half hour of Inside Indiana Business.
And we do begin the second half hour of our show shining the spotlight on landmark legislation. Title IX, signed into law 50 years ago this week. It led to the explosive growth of women's sports and really leveled the playing field for women to pursue higher education as well. Before Title IX passed in 1972, there were fewer than 300,000 girls participating in high school sports. Today, 3.5 million involved in high school athletics. For a deeper dive in reaction to Title IX in this landmark occasion, I'm pleased to be joined by Indiana Fever executive Allison Barber, also Tamika Catchings, the owner of Tease Me Cafe, co-founder of Catch the Stars Foundation. She's also the co-chair of the 2024 NBA All-Star Board of Directors and, of course, a Hall of Famer as well. So, ladies, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know we went through the hoops here. Allison, you're in Washington, D.C. In fact, I think you're in the Washington Mystics offices as your flight was delayed to get back. So really glad you joined us. Tamika, you're here in Indianapolis. And Tamika, I'll start with you because this is a big week marking Title IX, but also Catch 98, which is a documentary being released on the SEC network. It's debuting this week. Let's run a little clip of that special that's going to begin airing this week right now.
May be the best women's basketball player in the history of the game.
Another steal. Catchings delivers.
She was always the girl that got chose before a lot of the boys. She was just that good.
Let me tell you a story.
I knew that there was something very special about her.
About when greatness chases perfection.
You are seeing a clinic in basketball.
That is a piece on the undefeated 97-98 Tennessee team, 39-0. What do you remember about that and the fact that without Title IX, none of that would have happened?
Well, that's exactly what it is, Gerry. Without Title IX, that would not have happened, and we wouldn't have had the opportunity to play. And for myself, being able to compete for a national championship. And so definitely so blessed to be a part of that team in particular, being able to get, that was history. And early on, before social media got here, before all the opportunities that we have now, that was just the beginning.
Yeah, and I know you've been on Twitter, social media, talking with other athletes around the SEC. What's kind of the vibe, the talk right now, marking this occasion 50 years ago for Title IX? What are folks saying?
Well, the biggest thing is the opportunity. And, you know, the athletes that I'm getting the opportunity to now be alongside, they're still in college. Mm-hmm. So the NIL and being able to kind of navigate the land that they're in, things that I didn't have to navigate NIL, I didn't have to navigate social media. So it's a totally different world, but because of Title IX, because of the fair opportunities, because of equity, now these young ladies are being able to experience a lot of the things that we didn't get the chance to experience.
Yeah. Allison, as I mentioned, you're in D.C. You were there for a big event this week marking Title IX. Tell us about that event and some of your big takeaways from the celebration out in D.C. this week.
Well, Gerry, the Billie Jean King, the First Lady, were with us at an event yesterday honoring Title IX, and then also women from around the world who have taken the theme of Title IX and used sports to advance society in many countries, over 60-some countries. But what was really special as a Hoosier was to hear Billie Jean King talking about her admiration and friendship with Senator Birch Bayh. And, you know, we talk about Title IX, it's 37 words, but in that line, she said that Senator Bayh said, they wrote the word that said no person should be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity. She said, Birch Bayh said they put in activity as a catch-all in case they forgot anything. And every time she would see him, she would praise him for the word activity because that's what opened the door to sports. Yeah. Originally, Title IX was about opportunity to education. But by including activity, as Senator Bayh did and Patsy Mink from Hawaii, they opened the door for sports. And, you know, it was special to be here and celebrate the vision that people had, our own Senator Bayh and many others to pursue it. And what Billie Jean says is that, you know, we need to respect it and protect it. There's so much more to do in this space, but we've come a very long way. And it's exciting to see. It's great for our Fever players. Gerry, you talked about the number of girls who play sports. How about the fact that before Title IX, only 10% of females had held doctorate degrees, and now 54%. And one of our own players, Kelsey Mitchell, is pursuing her doctorate degree. Or Lexi Hall on our fever team has her bachelor's and master's in science and engineering from Stanford. So education and sports, it's a wonderful opportunity because of Title IX.
And you're one of those people with a doctorate, and again, something that would likely not have happened without this legislation.
Gary, that's right. You know, Birch Bayh was so passionate because his wife got turned down to medical school, I believe. And so, you know, it's not that long ago. And now we know, according to Ernst & Young, 96% of female executives, C-suite executives, played sports. So what a great pathway. And I can't help but share this story. It's a big story about how female executives played sports. But this week in one of our basketball camps, a mother came up to us and said that her daughter had 3 near-death experiences and 2 broken legs. It was dramatic for her, but she caught onto the game of basketball and was so inspired by it, wanted to play, and her coach said she could never play. She determined to play. She lost 47 pounds, and she's on 2 basketball teams. And so I say that's why. That's Title IX at work, and that's why Tamika and I are so passionate about protecting and promoting the game of basketball.
Yeah, Tamika, Allison mentioned work still needs to be done, and I thought back to, I think it was a couple of years ago, the visuals of the women's Final Four weight area at the Final Four versus the guys, and that was something that kind of stood out. As you look at going forward and maintaining or improving or continuing to enhance this whole thing, is there work to be done? What needs to be done in your view?
Yeah, there's definitely work to be done, and I think you look at that was an unfortunate situation that happened. And obviously last year, the NCAA definitely stepped up and was able to come through, but it's stories like that, and you think about social media and the power of social media and what can happen. Our job, and really what we're fighting for, especially with the WNBA and the collegiate game and so forth, I don't want those situations to happen. We want there to be equity across the board. We want to make sure that our young ladies are getting served just like the men are. And it's terrible that we have to keep comparing the men to the women, but it is what it is until there is total equality for all. And I think that's one situation. Even as we continue, just being able to have access. I think that when you look at the coverage for women's sports in general, and of course I always talk about basketball, but when you look at the coverage for women's sports overall, that's an area that we definitely need to continue to improve the support, viewership, sponsorship, partnership. I mean, I can go on and on talking about this just because I've been Alice and I have been in the foxhole trying to figure out ways to continue to grow the fever here in Indiana, but this is definitely not just Indiana fever. This is across the board, women's sports being able to provide more access for all of our young ladies.
All right, Allison, we've only got 30 seconds left. Tamika, no better example of a role model. Talk about that, if you could, just briefly, in terms of the impact of role models that have been generated because of Title IX and the girls and women who served as role models for other girls and women.
Well, for me, I mean, my role models growing up, my mom was my first role model, my grandmother, my mother. But then when I look at sport, Daly, Lisa Leslie, and Cheryl Swoop, because of what they represented, not only as strong women, but for me, strong African-American women playing in the Olympics and being able to represent our country. Those were my heroes. Yeah.
Allison, I'll give you the final word on role models and the impact.
I will say, you know, I look at our own state, Sue Ellspermann, Pamela Whitten, Dale Boudreaux, women who played sports or have been affected by education to succeed in so many ways. But I can't end this without a little tip to Tamika and Pat Summitt. Tamika said it is what it is, and Pat Summitt used to say it is what it is until it is what we make it. And that's what we're busy doing, is making it better for girls and the future of women in sports and society.
A great way to end the conversation. Great perspective. Allison Barber, CEO, president of the Indiana Fever, Hall of Famer Tamika Catchings. Thank you both, and thanks for all you do for Indiana as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerry.
All right. Well, the numbers don't add up. There really aren't enough math teachers in Indiana classrooms. Coming up next, we introduce you to a unique program in the state that's addressing the problem. It's time now for Eye on Education. Well, the numbers just really aren't adding up. Why aren't there enough math teachers in Indiana classrooms? And what is being done to solve the problem? Well, enter Indianapolis-based XR Technologies, an ed tech startup that just received approval from the Indiana Department of Education to license and train math teachers. For more on the XR model and why it could move the needle in a big way in Indiana schools, pleased to be joined once again by CEO and founder Kevin Burkholz. And Kevin, again, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Gerry.
Hey, first of all, tee this up, this shortage. I mean, we hear broadly about a shortage of teachers, but in particular math teachers. How bad is the situation?
Well, it's 10 years or 20 years really in the making, but the pandemic really exacerbated everything that de-incentivized people to want to not be a part of the education system. You can imagine what it was like in the last 3 years in classrooms with students or not in classrooms. The only two positions that are more difficult to fill than mathematics are frankly, school leaders and special education. So it's one of those top that is cross-content domain.
And you feel that crisis is not an overstatement when you talk about it?
Yeah, I think it's beyond crisis. We have nearly 300 open positions in Indiana today. These are publicly funded positions, right? They are paid by tax dollars to have really quality professionals in place, and there isn't anyone coming.
Now, XR Technologies positioned to address this in a big way. First of all, give us the thumbnail, the business model of XR Technologies.
Yeah, it's nuanced for people to understand. I think the best way to say it is it's a math department as a service, which is very different than what you would see on the open market. We run all or part of the mathematics departments for our school partners. We offer the professional, we wrap them with what we call XR Flex, which is a service that is a flexible blended learning. And it allows them to be a relative novice or new to education and perform admirably with students.
So big news for you, receiving $5 million from the Indiana Department of Education to train math teachers to go into the classroom. That's a lot of money.
Well, it shows a lot what the state of Indiana is trying to do in terms of innovating. There's a different way of thinking about how to get innovation into our education system. The Department of Education is leading with the idea that they can incentivize through grant funding and other things to get schools to try something new. We all want something new. To get the system to try something new is important, and it's given us a huge opportunity to scale.
And as you talk about the focus on STEM, on science, technology, engineering, and math, and fueling that pipeline, that makes it maybe more of a sense of urgency to solve this issue.
Well, think about the pipeline in a different way. The education system right now in K-12 is leading to higher ed, which leads to the pipelines that we hear about, right? The INDY tech scene, among other things. They have a crisis of hire as quality candidates for IT and software development, among other things. What if we use the education system as a process where we can benefit dually both the professionals that are there, but also the students that are there? Training and developing the capacity and up-credentialing people that are in our community to drive great value for students is dually beneficial. It's a place where we think we can attract a lot of people through the right incentives to work in education and then potentially move on to something else after several years of value.
Yeah, I should mention too, part of this $5 million is a licensure program, right? Which you're going to be a part of and really is unique in the country.
Yeah, so XR Academy for Teachers is what we call that, and the Indiana Department of Education, the State Board of Education gave us approval on May 4th. And then where and how that works is really important. It's competency-based, which means we can employ teachers at schools. They get competency for the work that they're doing and the training that we do to make sure they're excellent mathematics teachers. That first academic year, they get full-time salary benefits, stock options with our company, but they also up their credential and get a licensure.
Very important issue and topic, and that's producing more math teachers in Indiana. XR Technologies really addressing the problem. And Kevin Burkholz, as always, thanks for joining us. We look forward to following your story.
Thanks, Gerry. Appreciate you.
Well, pushing Indiana public education forward is something very near and dear to Robin Winston's heart. He's my next guest on the Business and Beyond podcast. For more than 20 years, Robin's Indianapolis-based firm, the Winston TERRE Group, has helped public school districts promote themselves to get referendums passed in education, including 9 in Marion County alone. But Robin's big focus now, preserving African-American history all over the state, like the popular Levi and Catherine Coffin State Historic Site in eastern Indiana.
I wish people could see the enthusiasm for preserving African-American history across the state. Fountain City, Indiana, over in Wayne County, since 1842 it's been there. They estimate, of course, wasn't anybody there with like a price line, but they estimate 2,000 slaves made their way to freedom through that house alone. We got involved with that. Once again, 2 women over there who had been docents. The place was closed, I think, three months of the year. They had raised like $70,000 or $100,000 locally. We helped raise some money, and we built next to it a building that Judy O'Bannon once looked at and said we ought to do something with, a $3.2 million interpretive center that is now a kind of a chronology of slavery in America and also the fight for freedom.
Very interesting conversation with Robin Winston on the next edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. To check it out and all of our other podcasts as well, just go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Bird Slick, the General, Damon Stephanie White, even Ruth Elliott from the Huntingbird class of 1926. They've all made it into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. Meet the new leader at this Indiana treasure and see what's next. Well, the leadership of a state treasure, the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame in Newcastle, is changing hands. Bill Benner introduces us to its new executive director in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Gerry, thanks. After 13 years at the Hall of Fame helm, Chris May announced he is stepping down, and stepping up into the role as May's successor is Matt Martin, the athletics director at Knightstown High School for the past 8 years and a member of the Indiana High School Athletic Association's executive committee. Matt joins us in the studio, and welcome, sir. Congratulations on this new assignment. Executive director of the Hall of Fame. How's that sound?
Sounds pretty prestigious. It's an honor. I'm excited to take on the role, but again, Chris left me big shoes to fill, and I'm excited to continue his journey.
Well, talk about you. You've been athletic director at Knightstown. You played basketball back in the day at Knightstown, so.
I was on the team. We talked about that. I didn't play a whole lot, but yes, I went to Knightstown, graduated from Purdue, was fortunate enough then to come back as athletic director at Knightstown for the past 8 years. Again, I use the word fortunate a lot with Chris, and then I was fortunate enough to be on the IHSA executive committee, which I currently have to give up that seat, but serve on that until July 1. Was chairman of that during the 1920 school season. So it's been a fun ride, and again, this journey in Indiana basketball is exciting to see where it goes next.
Well, with the Hall of Fame and Newcastle, and you're in Knightstown, so it'll be a short commute, but talk about, again, what attracted you to this particular position.
You know, I taught history. I was an history education major. Again, Indiana basketball. What better to tie those than the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame? Just the tradition of coaches and players. Being an official myself as well, the officiating side of that is to the Hall. Just the richness of Indiana basketball. Being able to share that with people across the state. My goal, as I said in my interview and talking with people at the golf outing we just finished, was to show that it's all 92 county based. It's not a Central Indiana organization. Get up to Crown Point and the region, get down to Evansville and the southern part of the state, just to promote basketball and kind of highlight what everything is about in Indiana, which is the big step is basketball. I think
something we talked about before we went on the air. This is it's not just it's a full time. You guys are doing events all the time. You got the Basketball Hall of Fame Classic in December. You got golf tournaments. You put on the annual induction banquets. I mean, it's a full-time endeavor for sure.
It is, and when talking to Chris, sensory overload right now with everything I'm trying to learn and be a part of. But it will be a lot of events, a lot of fun, full-time job. Again, traveling the state, getting to basketball games. We've got our 3 major golf outings, the Southern, which we just finished, the Kokomo with Coach Versa here coming up, and then again, the highlight of it all in Noblesville. December, we've got the Hall of Fame games, both the men's and women's. And then it is fundraising to get the hall, being there to when visitors come and, explaining the rich tradition of Indiana basketball. Schools, individuals that come off, off the street, whatever it might be, just highlighting what we have.
Matt, we got less than a minute to talk about. I know there's an expansion plan for the Hall of Fame in Newcastle.
We are. We're going to meet with the contractors here soon. A floor plan expansion that will just, again, increase and expand what we can highlight, what we can show, maybe bring some of those things out of the woodwork that we can have interactive displays, those types of things. So really, again, trying to highlight Indiana basketball to another step.
Well, Matt Martin, we certainly congratulate you on your new leadership role with the Hall of Fame. It's an Indiana treasure. It's an iconic place, and if you haven't been there, folks, get there. Matt, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
And Gerry, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. From basketball to baseball, Four Winds Field at Coveleski Stadium celebrating a prestigious honor. The home of South Bend Cubs has been named Best Ballpark by Ballpark Digest. It beat Neuroscience Group Field at Fox City Stadium, the home of the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, for the top spot on that list. Ballpark Digest says the public vote favored South Bend by a 32% advantage. This is the first time the South Bend Cubs have won the Best Ballpark honor as a High A affiliate. Well, Indy 11, the new Parkside Country Kitchen looking to rebuild in Indianapolis, and also some tech layoffs potentially in the tech sector here in Indy. With more on those stories, pleased to be joined as always by IBJ editor Leslie Weidenbender. And Leslie, as we talked about earlier in the show, you guys Mickey Shuey broke a big story on the Indy 11's new soccer stadium. A site has been selected downtown.
Yeah, and it's an interesting site, Gary, because you might not necessarily think of this spot, which is currently a factory, as a great place for not only a soccer stadium, but also a development. But when you really take a look around, it's just a few blocks from so many amenities. And then to top it off, it's right along the river, and right across the White River will be the new Elanco headquarters. And it's interesting because already the plan was to create a bridge at Henry Street, and when that extension happens, it's going to come right along the south end of the new 11 Park when it's finished.
Yeah, that is has a potential to be, again, transformational is used a lot, but for that part of the city could be transformational indeed. And this is about more than soccer. We talked about this. This is a multi-dimensional development.
Sure. The whole idea behind this development is that there are a lot of other components. And in fact, that's key to the financing scheme for the soccer stadium. Tax revenue that's collected in the residential part, in the commercial part, the hotel, the office space, all of that will go to help pay off the bonds to build the stadium.
Okay, a lot of people are going to want to know about the timeline. How soon could things get going and maybe this development, at least phase one, be up and running?
So Diamond Chain is actually still operating within the plant, even though they don't own it anymore. They are planning to move out probably within the next 6 to 8 months. The Keystone Group is hoping to start demolishing the existing buildings in the spring, with the goal of getting the first phase of the project done in a couple of years in time for the 2025 Indy 11 season. Okay, you've got some other stories, very interesting stories in this week's edition, including some looming potentially tech layoffs. Yeah, we're starting, and we've reported a couple of times that there's some tightening in venture funding for tech companies right now. I think you're seeing that slowdown in the stock market as well. That's starting to affect our local tech companies as well, and we're seeing some layoffs, especially in some startups. But what we found when we talk to folks that have been laid off is they still see a ton of opportunities. And the experts say that this is a chance for large companies, non-tech firms who need tech workers, as well as small companies, to finally scoop up a little bit of the talent that has been so hard to find for the last few years. Absolutely. Hey, we only have 15 seconds. I mentioned Country Kitchen, kind of an iconic restaurant here in Indianapolis, rebuilding. You're going to talk about that as well. That restaurant burned down a couple of years ago, and they've broken ground again, and they're going to rebuild in the neighborhood. And that's just such a neighborhood hotspot and such a great cultural icon.
All right, jam-packed with information this week. The IBJ, Leslie Weidenbender, as always, thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much, Gary.
All right. And I'll be right back right after this. Stay with us. Well, as we mark the 50th anniversary of Title IX, we leave you with a look at how 37 words changed generations to come.
No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity, receiving federal financial assistance. 37 words that changed everything.
Very impactful indeed. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gerry Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.